Well, folks, we have a Hearthstone patch with some nerfs coming to Hearthstone. Not a ton in this one, but a very quick turnaround for it. And I realize I'm looking a little bit like this Light Ray right now. Light Ray is one of the cards being changed indeed. There are also some bug fixes, some Battlegrounds changes, and some other stuff we'll get into. But let's talk about these card changes first and foremost. So up first, Construct Quarter is going from 3 durability to 2 durability. So a nerf to the various forms of Death Knight. In this early Festival of Legends meta, all 3 triple rune versions of Death Knight are looking pretty good. Frost and Blood in particular, standing up there in tier 1, and they all utilize Construct Quarter. So this is a way to hit all 3 of the Death Knight decks at once. Now, that said, when I was playing Blood DK, I didn't really feel like Construct Quarter was a particularly important card. It's good, it's fine. Particularly with like Tour Guide nowadays, you can kind of get some really cheap hero powers loaded up into turn 4 and then use this immediately. So not to say that it's not important, it just, it wasn't like the primary game plan or super impactful to the deck as far as I could tell. So maybe a small nerf to Blood DK, probably a little bit of a bigger nerf to Unholy DK in particular. And then I haven't played the new Frost aggro DK yet, but I don't know, probably a little more significant there than Blood 2, I would expect. Now, ultimately, a durability change on this is not enormous, I don't think. It's really the first activation of this, I think, that is the most impactful most often. That's the one that takes kind of the big swing there on board. But the second one is still coming along soon enough to also really help turn a game, in your favor. It's happening early enough that the game is still up for grabs. Sometimes by that 3rd durability anyway, perhaps the game might already be on the way to being decided. Somebody's already, netted a big advantage on board. Somebody's moving towards a, late term game plan. So, the 3rd durability, if you want to put it that way, it feels like the least important on the Construct Quarter. In other words, a stat nerf or taking away rush or something would have been a much more impactful change, I think, than the durability change here, because the first 2 are the 2 you care about the most. It's still meaningful. There are still, of course, moments where that 3rd durability will matter, but I would say ultimately a fairly soft change in the world of Construct Quarter. Now, that said, this card has already been nerfed twice. Remember, this started out at 3 mana, which was, I think, a notably larger change here, pushing it to 4. So next up here, we have the Vengeful Walloper going from 6 to 7 mana. Of course, this is a big payoff card for Outcast Demon Hunter, a deck that appears to have landed pretty safely in tier 1 across most ranks. It looks crazy strong early in the expansion. I think it's leveled off a little bit, feels a little bit more fair. But this is a big change, of course. This card you want to be able to cheat out as quickly as possible, and delaying it by a mana, I mean, that is sometimes going to slow it down by a turn or 2, delay that swing on board a little bit with this 5/5 rush. Ultimately, of course, it's still not difficult for this deck to get this 2-0, and this is a this game effect, so there are going to be plenty of instances where they draw this in the mid game and it was going to be 0 before, and it will still be 0 now because they've just chained enough Outcast cards. But I still think there will be those moments where, maybe this comes down on turn 5 instead of turn 4, and that gives the other deck a little bit more room to go under them, or a little bit more time to stabilize against some of that pressure. So I do think this will pull a percentage point or something off the Outcast Demon Hunter win rate, which might be helpful for other decks to gain some ground, since that does look like a tier 1 deck. And currently Death Knight and Demon Hunter are the top of tier 1 at the highest ranks. Pure Paladin's also up there as you get a little bit lower in ranks. So both reasonable changes to pull down tier 1 decks. And then finally, speaking of Pure Paladin, we've got the Light Ray here, or me, perhaps, going from 9 to 10 mana. And very, very similar change, basically, to the Vengeful Walloper. Sometimes, slowing this down by just a little bit, but plenty of other times it'll be 0 when it would have been 0 before. So I think this still remains a relevant card. It just pulls at one game here and there, a little bit of difference. I didn't get my taunt down in time, I got ran over, or I didn't get 2 5/5s down for free. I've had a lot of instances where I get those 2 Light Rays at once drawn off, a Purator or something, and I'm on turn 5 or going into turn 6 or something, and and I have one that's like, 1 mana and the next one's 0 mana, and they line up perfectly as like they slot into the turn there, and I just dump them both. So this, since they come in pairs very often with Purator drawing them, I think that hurts a lot. You're kind of stacking up the nerf twice in a single turn or all at once in a single hand. So there will be moments where that really stings, that you can't quite cheat both of these out, or it's just one turn too late. But again, ultimately, I think remains a really efficient cost discount card. So these are both really doing the same sort of thing if you look closely. So another reasonable change to a deck that's looking really strong, especially at lower ranks. Pure Paladin stands up as like the best deck in the game right now. At gold, it's pretty strongly number one. So those are the only standard format balance changes, and I have to say I'm okay with these. I was worried if we got a balance change this early, it might be a little bit overreactive or too dramatic, because I think the meta is still kind of settling. It's it's taking shape. There are different decks doing different cool things and kind of moving up and down a little bit. So I didn't think we were in a particularly unhealthy meta just yet. So I'm glad these changes aren't too dramatic and don't overreact to anything crazy. I think ultimately pretty small changes to the 3 best decks, and that's a good spot to land in. Now, there are also a bunch of Battlegrounds updates. I, frankly, do not play enough Battlegrounds to offer insights on these. I'll run through them really quickly here for you in case you're curious, but I'm not going to offer any insight. So, Snow Elemental is going from Tavern Tier 4 to Tavern Tier 3. Valistraz is going from 4 to 3, so these are getting buffed a little bit faster on the buddy button stuff. Talent Scout is going from Tavern Tier 5 to Tavern Tier 3. Coilfang Elite is going from Tavern Tier 2 to Tavern Tier 1, but also getting a little bit of a stat loss alongside it. Sub Scrubber is going from 5 to 4. Piloted Whirlotron is going from 3 to 2. Fester Gut, that's a fun one to say. I guess he's had a change to his minion pool. Some of those could get pretty crazy when summoned off of him. And then these all have been nerfed. The Nightmare Ectoplasm losing some stats and going up a tier. So that's a big nerf. Raging Contender going up a tier from 4 to 5. Living Nightmare going from 2 to 3, getting some health and stats back. This one did lose the stats, right? Yeah, it lost stats despite going up. So that's a big nerf. Waxadread going from 4 to 5. His name's Waxadread the Drippy. I haven't played this one yet. That's pretty funny. Shady Aristocrat. The quest discovered will now be more difficult to complete. Those quests for Denathrius and that portion of the Battlegrounds meta always had that variability on difficulty. And then some updates to minions as well. Boombox going from 4 to 5. This thing always seemed insane to me. I was clearing like tons of stuff with that card every time I played it. That's the Battlegrounds changes. And then Arena is getting an update. Card appearance rates were adjusted. High power class cards for Death Knight, Hunter, Mage, Paladin, and Shaman will appear less frequently. High power class cards for Demon Hunter, Warrior will appear more frequently. The Countess, Feldrai Warband, Deal with the Devil, and Astal or Bloodthorn are no longer able to be drafted. So taking out some of the crazy broken stuff, it sounds like. Cool Warrior needs buffs, man. Speaking of which, it would have been cool to get some Warrior buffs for Standard, perhaps, because it is actually doing pretty dang bad. The prophecies, the prophecies were correct. The win rates for Warrior 38%. Paladin, Death Knight, Demon Hunter, the 3 cards getting nerfed, yeah, and then Warrior way down here. Whew, tough spot. And then finally, some bug fixes and game improvements. I'll just leave these up for you to read, but I'm not going to read these. Now, notably, you'll see no duels changes. Not a single change for duels. I mean, I guess the standard format changes kind of are duels changes. But particularly the crazy Drekthar hero power stuff that feels so frustrating to play against. Some YouTuber did a video on that, and apparently it's become a thing people are mad about. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sad that duels didn't get a change here. It seemed like that was a really, really quick, easy change for duels, given how oppressive that feels. I don't actually know that its win rate is super, super crazy from what I saw, but just really frustrating in a play pattern. I think people kind of hate when you take 60 damage off a crazy Drekthar buffed hero power. But you know, that's duel's life, it seems sometimes. It doesn't get a lot of updates. So anyway, a little sad there. I think I'm pretty happy with these standard format changes, though. I'm glad they didn't go overboard on these. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.